Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mack Story.
I want to share a quick thought with you before we get started on today's episode. It's one thing to apply these leadership principles I'm always speaking about and talking about in the business world, but it's a whole different ball game with the people who you're closest to and most emotionally attached to. Especially I'm talking about your family members, those who you live with and or associate with on a regular basis. So I thought it'd be a good idea to give you a real life example of how these leadership principles apply in your personal life with your family and maybe your friends as well. So I hope you enjoy today's episode with my special guest, and it'll be a great lesson in how does this happen at home, how you take leadership principles and apply them at home. And also reach out to me if you like this episode and you'd like to hear me and Eric speak again on a different topic or other stories you may have read about in some of my books. Send me an email at Mack, M-A-C-K, at Mack, M-A-C-K, story, S-T-O-R-Y.com. Mack at mackstory.com. If you got something specific you'd like to hear me and my son Eric talk about. Hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone. Thanks for stopping by the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. A few weeks ago I had on a special guest, my wife, Rhea, and I hope you enjoyed her podcast. If you haven't checked that one out, you may want to go back. It actually released back on April the 3rd. And so today I got another special guest, another family member, and it's actually my son, Eric. And if you've listened, you may know I have an episode number 20, where I actually talked about where I lost my relationship with Eric for 4 years from the time he was age 15 to 19. I had screwed up so bad as a dad that he didn't really want to have a relationship with me anymore. But I was able to fix that, and today it's pretty cool. I'm going to introduce you guys to him. And what's cool about this episode is neither one of us have any idea what we're going to say. We're just doing it off the cuff, unscripted. We're going to talk about leadership stuff and transformation, and so I'll go ahead and introduce you. So thanks for being on the show, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dad.
We don't know what's about to happen, do we?
No, not a clue.
Well, one thing I want people to know, though, I always tell everybody, they've heard me enough say it, but I want everybody to know I'm bilingual. I speak I don't speak English and Spanish. I speak English and country. So anybody listening to me, you guys have to figure out. Eric may be bilingual too. I don't know. You have to figure that out. But he grew up in Alabama and born in Opelika, Alabama, right next door to Auburn. But you ain't living in Auburn anymore, are you, Eric?
No, sir. I'm currently living out in Tiburon, California. Made my way out to the West Coast.
Where's Tiburon at?
So Tiburon, it's about 10 minutes north of the Golden Gate Bridge, right above San Francisco.
Just kind of across the bay. Get on the bridge, cross over, and then you over there on the other side of the bay. You ain't too far from San Quentin Prison, are you?
No, I'm not very far at all. Right over the hill, actually.
Okay. So how'd you get from Auburn to basically the San Francisco Bay Area? What caused you to make that leap?
It was a combination of a lot of different things in life, I guess. I don't know exactly how far back you want me to go, but, started out when I was, 19 and, dropped out of college to start, took a week-to-week performance-based contract, working with a manufacturing company, doing lean manufacturing consulting, and, turned into leadership development.
let me jump in right there and interrupt you. And we're gonna lead this thing back to California. But you just said something pretty neat that's really a key point. It's when you dropped out of community college, right? That's what you were saying. So that's when you were about 19.
Yes.
And like I was telling everyone that's listening, from age 15 to 19, you and I didn't even really have a relationship. It was almost non-existent. Is that the way you saw it?
Yeah, that's the way I remember it.
So tell me and whoever's listening, what did I do? Because the reason I want people to know I'm doing this episode with you is I want them to know the impact personal growth and development can have on them, their relationships with their family, their children, their spouses, their extended families, or, you know, if they have an ex-spouse and that side of the family. There's a lot of stuff going on out there, and that's what was going on. Your mother and I had been divorced since you were about 5-6 years old, and so you were living a week with me, a week with her. You were coming back and forth at age, you know, basically from 5 or 6 up to 15. But 15, you realized you had an option. You didn't have to come around me any longer, did you?
No. I figured that out the hard way, but yeah, I mean,
what was it about me that, as a parent, what was it that made you just didn't like me anymore?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I guess what it came down to is, you know, growing up as, you know, having a Marine for a father. You know, I mean,
that didn't help.
No, you know, that didn't help too much, but it was, you know, I mean, you did teach me some good lessons as a young kid, you know, like, you know, to always be aware of your surroundings and, you know, never let anybody, you know, control you, you know, and always, you know, I mean, you know, maybe trust but verify, you know, like always, you know, listen to what people say, but, you know, never, you know, accept it as truth until you verify it yourself. You know, stuff like that, those things that, you know, major kind of principles that come to mind that I remember, you know, learning as a young kid, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. But, you know, as I grew into a teenager, you know, I mean, you taught me very well as far as how to see the stuff, but, you know, you started, I guess, trying to control me, you know, from my perspective, you know, and you started kind of getting, you know, upset anytime that you couldn't. You were kind of being, you know, a little more reactive, which I was being reactive as well, but, you know, I didn't want to be controlled. I wanted to, you know, become who I wanted to become, and it seemed like you were trying to, you know, steer me down a path that you would say that you wanted, you know, you wanted me to become whatever I wanted to become, but it seemed more like, you know, that seemed more like you were, you know, wanting me to become the version of me that you saw in your head. If that makes sense. I'm not exactly saying that. It's not coming out as smooth as I would like it to.
Yeah, I wanted you to be who I wanted you to be, right? I mean, you trying to be who you wanted to be, and I was trying to get you to be who I wanted you to be.
Yeah, but then at the same time, you were telling me, you know, that you wanted me to be whoever I wanted to be. But, you know, what you were doing was, you know, saying, you know, your actions were saying otherwise.
You're exactly right. And that's what a lot of parents do. And a lot of folks listening out there, if you remember back when you were a teenager, Eric's not a teenager anymore. He's as we're recording this episode, he's about to turn 29 in a few days. So by the time you hear that, he's done crossed over the mark. He's 29. So we've rebuilt our relationship. It's been going now for 10 years because that started back when he was 19. But there's a lot of us out there who can look back when we were a teenager and understand how our parents were trying to shape us. And what Eric just said was powerful. He said, I'm teaching him to become his own person and encouraging him to become his own person, while I was literally trying to shape him and mold him into exactly what I wanted to be. That doesn't even make sense when you actually slow down and listen to it, but that was the perspective that he had. I'm telling him to do one thing, and he's trying to do it, and then I'm trying to force him to be this little person, this young person that I wanted him to be. And how did that work out for me? it caused him to stop wanting to be around me 100%. So from 15 to 19, I didn't have very much influence with you, did I, Eric?
Nope. I mean, kind of came to a boiling point. Not exactly sure. I can't exactly remember what situation it was when I left, but it could have been.
It was the one with.
You sold my car or something.
Yep.
Yeah, you sold my car.
Yeah, we had already been having some stuff.
Yeah, because I was texting. In my car on the drive home from the beach.
Yep, we had went down to the beach. You drove your own car.
Yeah, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yep, and even then we didn't really have a relationship because you were 16 then, but we were still trying, but there really was no relationship right there. I mean, you probably was only with us because we were going to the beach and you wanted to go to the beach, and we had a place for you to stay. That's probably the really only reason. You agree?
Yeah, it was for my birthday, yeah.
Yep, and we were still trying to hang on. But when we really lost the relationship was when you took your mom's car at 15 out of the garage, and then I sold your truck that I had bought for you to get at 16. That was the real deal right there. And the folks who are listening, a lot of the stuff that you and I are talking about right now, I write about it in my book, Defining Influence. Increasing your influence increases your options. So if you want to read about a lot of these things where I got it wrong and how I later learned to fix it, and me talking about and teaching about it from a leadership and personal growth perspective, and really breaking it down, be sure to check out Defining Influence. But it was when I sold your truck. I went and traded it, sold it, got me a Corvette Z06.
Yep, I remember that.
Because I wanted to make a point that I was done. And
yep,
really,
you did.
the point that you're right. The point you saw that I was done is I was done being your parent.
Yeah.
And that's when it ended. So let's fast forward through this a little bit. So from 15 to 19, that's when everything just pretty much ended from when you was age 15. But when you were 17, and you didn't know all this was happening, it was just happening. We didn't have a relationship. But you know it now because, you know the story. But when Eric was 17, is when I discovered leadership development, personal growth through the form of a 1-hour audio highlight of the 7 habits of highly effective people. And so when I discovered that, I started changing it and applying it in my life to get better. I just saw it made a lot of sense, and I wanted to get better. I wanted to make more money. I wanted to do a better job in my consulting business, and I was just trying to get better. But at the same time, again, Eric and I hadn't had a relationship for 2 years at that point, and we still would not have a relationship for 2 more years. But during those 2 years that I was reading and growing and getting better and applying this stuff, my mother, Eric calls her Nanny, my mother was talking to you. You remember all those times, Eric? Every now and then you talk to her and she was telling you that I was changing or getting better or different. You remember any of those conversations?
I don't remember any, particular conversation, but I mean, I definitely remember talking to her, and and she would kind of give me updates, and I didn't really care, but
you're right.
But I do. I remember.
But something when you got 19, and this is where we're going to join back what you said a minute ago. When you were 19, you were in community college. You were basically changing tires for your step-grandfather at his little tire store in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. And you were paying for all your vehicle, your gas, your insurance. You was paying for everything, and you was doing that job to make money, and you were in community college. But something caused you to call me. I remember I was in Dallas, Texas. It was in the evening, and we hadn't really had a relationship for 4 years. And you called me, and we talked for about 2 hours. Mainly you talked, because I was better at listening then, so that was what I was trying to do. Do you remember what even caused you to even want to call me in the first place?
Well, I mean, it was about to be a major change I was about to make in my life. And, it was kind of a low point because, I went to my my chemistry class in that community college, and I had never taken chemistry before, and he said, "Okay, guys, we're going to operate under the assumption that you've already taken a prerequisite chemistry class." And then he started, talking in a language I had never heard for about an hour and a half, and at that point I decided that I was done with college. So I left, and then I don't remember if it was that exact day, or maybe a few days later, but yeah, I just, I was about to make a life-changing, decision, and I just wanted to, call and talk it out and try to, see if you might have anything to help me.
Yeah. How long, we talked for 2 hours that night, but the main reason is, it's what I teach people is because I had learned actually the fifth habit of the 7 habits, which is seek first to understand, then be understood. So I was doing 2 years of me learning and applying and teaching that. I was really trying to do that when you called. I'm like, I got to get this right. I got to seek first to understand. Don't be giving him advice. But normally, I teach this for when I'm speaking on stage. I tell people, the old Mack, when Eric would have called me and told me he was about to drop out of community college and lose the class that he'd already paid to be in and basically get a failing grade or whatever happens when you drop out. Normally, I would have said, man, you can make it. You're smart, and he is smart, and he could have made it. But that ain't what I said, and that wouldn't even have been bad advice, except for one problem is if somebody wants your advice, Eric, what do you think they'll do?
They'll ask you for it.
They'll ask. And he did want my advice, but he wasn't asking for it when he first called. That's the key point. That's the thing that I got right. Normally, in the old days, I would have heard him talk just for a minute or two, and I'd figured out, he was calling me talking about dropping out of school, and I would have went straight into giving him advice. And it would have been what I just said, stay in school, even if you make a D, finish the class, pass the class, get your credit, and then you can figure out what you're going to do so you don't waste your money, that sort of stuff. But I didn't do that. I just listened to him talk. And that conversation led to you being interested in coming to work with me, and I was doing lean manufacturing process improvement. That's what it ended up. You kind of decided you wanted to join me, right?
Yeah. Originally I was just, I was just calling you to tell you that I was done with college, So, I guess I wasn't necessarily calling you for advice at the exact, when I pressed send on the phone. But, yeah, through, like, you basically got to the root of the problem, through all of that, listening to me just, talk through all that stuff. And then, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Well, that's where, the point you were making is we got to that point because I did listen, and I didn't give it any advice unless you actually asked me a question. And then when you asked me a question, I would answer that question, and then I would go back to listen. That's what a lot of people, they miss. They think, well, as soon as he asks me a question, it opens up the floodgate, and I can just go give all the advice I want to give. But that's not the way Habit 5 works. Not in-depth, empathic listening. That's a completely different level. What you just said was, you just called basically to tell me you were about to drop out. And I guess because my mother had been talking to you, you felt comfortable enough to call me, and that's what happened. And then because I got it right, Habit 5 is a tremendous habit. It gets people talking at a level they don't even understand they want to talk about. Anybody who knows about empathic listening knows what I'm talking about, but it allows people to open up. It gives them psychological air to breathe, and they just start going down a path they didn't even intend to go down. And that's what was happening with Eric that day. I knew what was happening. Eric was just doing it because he had never heard this stuff. All he knew was Dad's listening. And so he talked and he talked and he talked. And then somehow by the end of it, we got to, you want to come do what I'm doing. And the things everybody needs to know is what I was doing, I had worked 20 years to do. I had been in manufacturing for 20 years, and I had learned a lot. I had a lot of experience. Eric had no experience doing anything like that. and he's telling me he wanted to come do that. But what I knew was all he had to do was be able to lead people. If he could lead people, he could do what I was doing. And so what I told him was, I got some books. You got to start reading these books. You remember that, Eric?
Yep. Yep. Well, I remember. For my. Yeah. I mean, kind of what really, got me interested in leadership originally. I mean, it's kind of a funny story, but it's kind of what, led to the rekindling of our relationship. But pretty sure you remember this one, but for my 19th birthday, right? You took me down to like a 2-hour drive down to some big store to buy me some cowboy boots. You remember that?
Oh, I had forgot that story. I do.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell me. I have forgot that story. That's a missing piece of the puzzle. Tell me that version of your story. I do remember that now.
Yeah, I mean, this is what kind of, this is what led to this is what sparked everything,
So
the entire.
This is 10 years ago, almost. This is almost 10 years ago because your birthday's April 7th.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it'll be a decade in like just a week or two.
So we had that phone call, and then somehow we got together after that, which was probably I said, hey, come see me, and we'll go get some boots or something for your birthday. You tell me.
Yeah,
you know more about it than I do.
Yeah, you were trying to use that as an excuse to get me in the car to see me, because we had been talking for 4 years. And so you called me up and said that you'd take me down and get me some boots for my birthday, and there's this big boot factory down like 2 hours away, so we went
4-hour round trip.
Yeah. So we hit the road and that, and and I'm like looking out the window, and I'm in there just to get my boots, and then so I'm just dealing with the ride, and then you're trying to talk and all this stuff, and it's not really going anywhere, and then you decided to put on that little 1-hour audio of that 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and said you just wanted me to listen to it, and
I just
I'm
decided to. You think that's how it works?
Yeah. Sure, it wasn't pre-planned at all. So you turned it on, and again, I remember putting my head out the window, just trying not to even listen, because like, what in the world is my dad trying to get me to listen to, but then, over the course of, 10, 20, 30 minutes, as the recording went along, it just made too much sense. I didn't want to, but it made so much sense, and that I had to, start listening to it. And then we started, talking about it, and then we went down and, of course, got my boot, got what I was there for, and then we got back in the car, and when we started talking about it again, and that, just on the ride back, that really, it really completely changed my, my way of thinking. Completely changed my paradigm on, life, and I found out, what it meant to be reactive, and proactive, and that's kind of where it all starts, with especially, from your perspective as a parent, it all starts with, being able to be proactive. You're pretty much reactive to me. You might be proactive with, anybody at work, or anybody in your, anybody else in your personal life or your business life, but with family, these things are always the toughest, because we have so much emotional attachment to our family members.
Yep. Tell anybody listening right quick. They've heard me say it if they've been listening long enough, my way or whatever. But put it in your words, and anybody who's listening, maybe they don't understand really. They kind of understand reactive and proactive. But tell them what that means when you're saying that.
Yeah. So when you're being reactive, that basically means that you're reacting based on your feeling. How you feel at the time. Somebody made you upset, right? And they're the ones that caused you to be upset. right? So you just like, let's say, if somebody, if you're walking in a, supermarket and, somebody, just bumps you in the shoulder, on purpose, right? And that makes you mad. And so you just immediately, yell out at them or push them back or, something like that, right? Where if you're being proactive, you react to any given situation based on your value, in life, in 5 facets of life, right? Your mental, your physical, your social/emotional, your relationships, and your finances. So the only way to be proactive is to define what you value, in each of those 5 facets of life. So, if you have those, clearly defined, and delegated to your subconscious mind, then, that allows you to actually, step back and think about your values. What do you value in the situation? Am I with my kids? Do I need to get in an altercation with somebody in a supermarket? Right. So you may, let it go, and then, you don't have any issues. Where if you had decided to be reactive in that situation, you don't necessarily know, what's going to come of it, and it could, damage some things that you value. So that's, just a kind of a small example.
Yeah.
Of the difference.
So what you're saying right there, you described that. You're talking about me playing that 1 hour audio and the 7 habits, and that's just a highlight for anybody listening. The 1 hour audio that I was playing, but it was what I had discovered myself 2 years before that had really caused me to change. My books now, I write about all those principles and a bunch more in my books. But what Eric's saying, and I put that 1 hour audio in there, I wanted him to learn what I was learning, but also I wanted him to see what was causing me to change. And that's really what you kind of describe it. I think that's where you're kind of getting at, is you started understanding, you was learning it for yourself, but at the same time, we started being able to have a conversation because I was talking about that I had learned that, and you was realizing that maybe I did, or maybe you were hoping I did get back into that conversation.
Yeah, well, really, when I first heard it, immediately, right? My brain just goes to all the ways that this could have helped me, in all my, all the situations, all my past experiences, but then the fact that, that you somehow found that and you had listened to it, and you gave that to me, you opened my eyes to that, that must have meant that you were trying to change, because all of that stuff in there made sense, and then just the fact that we started, talking about all that, it's like instantly, the energy just picks up, and you're making new connections. You're starting to understand more about life, literally, and why we were acting the way that, we were acting for the last 4 years or, however long, our entire lives. But just important principles, of life, and just the fact that we both, understand them, and we were both able to understand why we were acting the way that we were acting before. Just the fact that we could understand all of that allowed us to get past it, right? It allowed us to move forward past that. And the more we grew, fast forward here, over almost 10 years now, our relationship is better than ever, and I completely attribute it, to, our leadership growth, and development as people, but it all sparked, right there in that car ride. That's for sure.
Yeah, you brought up some good points, and for anyone listening, just last week you and I talked 3 or 4 hours on 3 or 4 different times, and for me, I didn't go to sleep till like 3:30 in the morning. It's 12:30 your time, but we had several 3+ conversations last week, 3+ hour conversations. We had come a long way in 10 years, and a lot of times we ain't got to get into details, but a lot of times you and I talk about stuff we completely disagree on, but we enjoy the conversation. But it's because we understand this stuff, right?
Yeah. You understand different people's perspectives, and as long as both parties, are are into, growth and personal development and value, other people's opinions and perspectives, then, you can really have conversations about, anything with anybody.
So, and that's a key point. It allowed us to have a lot more conversations. That's how we started to get back close again. But I guarantee you, and you know this probably just as much as I know it, if I would never have discovered that stuff, which is all this leadership development, personal growth that I write about and speak about all over the place, if I would never have discovered it, and you would have never had discovered it, we still wouldn't be talking today. What do you think?
No. Life would be way different. Yeah, I don't think that we would have been talking, because it
wasn't getting better, it was getting worse.
Yeah, no, exactly. There was a time where I told you I'll talk to you in 20 years.
Yep.
That's the point, that we were at. Like I said, I think I mentioned it earlier, but it completely changed the entire trajectory of, my life, your life. Our entire family tree, really, as far as, if you want to think out that far, it's going to have a huge impact on, our family for generations to come.
And look back here, Eric. Oh, go ahead. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
So we talked about what would have happened if I wouldn't have learned it and you wouldn't have ever learned it, because at least one person's got to learn it for there even to be any chance. So two people who don't understand this stuff are far apart, but you get two who truly understand it, then you can get really close together. But Eric, how do you think our life, if I would have known this stuff when I was young, before you were born, or while you were 4, 5, or 6 years old, we probably never would have had a ruptured relationship. Could you see that as well?
Oh yeah, certainly. Without a doubt. It's just night and day. It's hard to even try to, put into a short description, how things would have been different. But your entire way of thinking would have been completely opposite. Which not that, I definitely don't regret anything that, happened. I'm definitely glad that everything happened the way that it did, but yeah, if you had to do it over again as a parent, you would definitely much rather would have known, you'd much rather have known all of the stuff now than to not have known it.
It'd be completely different. So now we're going to kind of fast forward it up. We got maybe 10, 15 minutes somewhere in there left, maybe a little longer. But so we went and got your boots. I put that 7 Habits 1 Hour Audio Leadership CD in the stereo. And for anyone listening, if you like my podcast, you listen to some of these episodes. It could be this episode right here. You may need to get better before you have some of those conversations with whoever it is you're trying to rebuild a relationship. But it could be with one of your children. You may have been listening to my stuff, reading my books, reading other people's books, listening to other podcasts, and you still may not have the relationship you want. You may be able to use this audio right here to go and reconnect. But what I told Eric after that, we got reconnected during that car ride. I had forgotten all about that. I don't think I've ever written about that or talked about it, because I had really forgotten it. All I knew was the next part I'm about to say, and that's when I told you, or we decided you wanted to come work with me, and I thought, I had a lot of influence as a consultant. I knew you could come work with me, but not really with me. I had to get you in there to work by yourself to actually add value. They didn't want to pay you to follow me around. And so I told you, you got to start reading all these books I've been reading. That was some point after that, right?
Yep. Yeah, that was probably right about, within a few weeks, after that, yep. For sure. Because, like I said,
it went fast.
Yeah, everything moved pretty fast. There, yeah, and of course, the one book I had to master, and basically before I started that was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I definitely wanted to read, at that point, after hearing that. Yeah, for sure.
it's kind of thick. But you were interested in it because of that 1 hour audio.
Yeah, and and of course, and then that book gave me the opportunity to change, to change my life, and it complete, and that's what I saw that as an opportunity, to change my life, by learning those principles, and applying them, and then ultimately teaching them, to others. That's what allowed me to be successful, when I went in those first, few weeks and months when, I was on a week-to-week performance-based contract, and I had to drop out of school and quit my job, and, that's a big risk for, a 19-year-old that's going to do something, that most people do, I guess, when they're retired. That definitely prepare, that the 7 Habits is what, really prepared me for that. And then, of course, I kept, reading and growing and, teaching classes and stuff once I got my feet on the ground and, got an actual, yearly contract with them.
Yep. So what Eric's talking about is I got him in. I got him a contract. We actually did Habit 4 of the 7 Habits, win-win, no deal. And he got to come in, and I could stop him from working, or he could stop working, or the owners of this company could stop him from working. Any of us 3 could stop it if none of us liked it, because we were doing win-win, no deal, which is a part of Habit 4. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of people hear me talk about the 7 Habits. They go get that book, and they never read that book because it's a big old thick book, and it give you a headache. Probably if I'd have been introduced to the book instead of the 1 hour audio, I may not have ever read it. I might have needed the 1 hour audio. But I take all those principles and I put them in my books in little bite-sized pieces so that you can read my books and get the same learning, the same principles without making your head hurt. But if you're up for the challenge, I highly recommend you to go read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But Eric come in. I'm going to fast forward him right quick. But he come in. He only worked with me for 3 weeks. Again, I had worked 20 years to be able to do what I was doing, and Eric only shadowed me basically for 3 weeks, and I gave him some PowerPoints, and he started leading process improvement, lean manufacturing events as a consultant at age 19 with 0 experience. So what was it, Eric? And we ain't going to get too deep into that, but we could have a whole nother show on that. We might do it next year. I'm going to be talking about change, and so I'm going to be talking about Kaizen and lean. We maybe do some more episodes together. But real quick, I want to tell everybody, I teach this, and I write about it in my books. And the principle is that I teach is it's not about me, but it starts with me. And the reason I'm telling you that right now is everything we're about to talk about, kind of condense it up, about Eric and his journey. That's not me, that's him. But it started with me because somebody introduced me to that 1 hour audio, and I listened to it and I got value out of it, and then I went and shared it with him. It's just like I tell my listeners, it's not about me, but it started with me. If I hadn't worked on me and developed me, I couldn't be talking to you today. We couldn't be doing this podcast. Eric and I wouldn't even have a relationship. But how was you able to go in just a couple of minutes? What was it that allowed you to be successful being a lean consultant, teaching process improvement, and you had never done any of that stuff?
Repeat the question one more time.
How are you able to be successful leading as a facilitator and as a consultant, leading these process improvement teams when you didn't really know about them? You had no idea about the competency side of all of that. What was it that actually allowed you to be highly effective? Because you were successful right off the bat, first time you did one.
Yeah, what allowed me to be successful is following these, leadership principles, almost like a Bible.
Exactly.
You have to have an unwavering, belief in the principles, because they're principles of life, or what leadership principles really are, because they're just, all the people that I was, training or leading, they were anywhere from, my age, 19, 20 to, 60, 65 years old. Some of these people have, been working in these, manufacturing plants longer than I've been on this planet, but I mean, they're just people, and I mean, and I feel like everybody gravitates towards, these principles. So, I mean, it's really just, I mean, learning, teaching, and applying these principles is really, I mean, the key to everything. I mean, yeah, I mean, I played sports growing up, right? So I mean, I was, football, basketball, ran track, played baseball for a while, So I mean, after a while, it's pretty good in those sports. You kind of naturally become a leader, and I mean, I feel like I do have some, natural abilities, but I mean, the only thing that made me successful in that particular role was understanding and believing in, those leadership principles. Started off, with the 7 Habits, and then, moving on into some of John C. Maxwell's, books, 5 Levels of Leadership, and, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, the 17 indisputable laws of teamwork. I can't believe I'm butchering that one.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I mean, it's like those are just some of the, foundational, books where, I mean, those, 7 habits and, 21 laws, and, I mean, I treated those like laws, and like habits, and I wanted to make those my habits, because that's what a highly effective person is. That's what a good leader is. So, I just wanted to emulate, what's in those books, I just wanted to reproduce that. I wanted to embody those principles, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yep, and that's exactly, and so did I. The only difference was I had 20 years of experience to stack mine on. You had no years of work experience when you got started, but you got amazing results, and you got the same type of results that I was getting.
Yep. So, I mean, I would also, you have to be, very open-minded, because, I mean, obviously I had no idea, I'd never really even, been in a manufacturing. I mean, I've toured maybe 1 or 2 manufacturing plants,
That means you just walked through it, though, down the aisle as a teenager.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything about that, right? So, I mean, you just have to have you have to have a huge willingness to learn, and I mean, and take risks, and I mean, that's one thing too, is, I always, I mean, the word, failure is not in my vocabulary. You either win or you learn.
Yep.
Right. So, I mean, if you like celebrate mistakes, right. And then, so like every time I make a mistake, I just try to make sure that I understand why I made that mistake, and then try to make sure that never happens again. So if that's the case, then, then I mean, I actually, I don't get upset with myself if I, make a mistake, or, if I do something that most people would see as failure. It's like I just learned, a way not to do it. So that just keeps helping me, move forward and learn and grow. I mean, because it's hard to grow if you feel like a failure and you feel like you can't, do anything.
Yep. So I'm gonna have to close it up. We ain't got just a few more minutes here, but the things that Eric knew, if you don't want to read all these big old thick books, I'm telling you right now, my book Blue Collar Leadership and my book Blue Collar Leadership and Supervision, those 2 books, those are 2 books. Each one of them's 30 chapters, 3 pages per chapter. But they're full of principles. And if you want to learn what actually Eric did, he learned a lot more than that. But if you go learn what's in those 2 books, that's literally all he did. And you've had 3 careers, 3 completely different careers. Real quick, Eric, what's the 3 things you've done?
4
things, maybe.
Yep. So I did the lean manufacturing, leadership development training, consulting. I tried out car sales for 6-8 months, and then did insurance and retirement sales for about 3 years, and then now out here in California I sell custom windows and doors, in-home consultations.
Yep. And you've been very successful without a college degree since you've been 19, right?
Yes, sir. Yep. And,
You
I have
don't need
people,
one.
People ask me all the time out here, when they kind of hear my story when I'm in their homes and, just having conversations with people. A lot of times people ask me, well, do you ever, have you ever thought about going back to college, or you should go get your degree, and my answer every time is no. I don't have any aspiration to go do that, because I learn and grow, every single day. I have true wealth, which is the ability to produce wealth, and that all comes from, the leadership, development and just personal growth. And, if you just keep growing and expanding your mind and, your abilities, then good things will come. That's just, you kind of have to, what you used to call it, you have to jump off the cliff and grow your wings on the way down.
Yeah, that's what they say. And you've been tremendously financially well off.
Yeah,
but we ain't got but a couple of minutes, Eric.
Okay.
But we got to stop. You tearing it up right now. But that's how you got back out to California. The long story right there. But what I want everybody listening to know is, I just got exposed to this and it made sense. And then I got better. I started applying it. Then I introduced it to Eric. Made sense to him. We both were able to rebuild our relationship. So my main message for this whole episode is, if you buying into this stuff, introduce it to your family. Do book studies. My little books are perfect for book studies with your family, especially if they're teenagers. But Eric, I got to give me a 1 minute or less answer, or just maybe even a quicker answer. But I'm gonna put you on the spot right here at the end before we wrap it up. What has changed most about me as your parent? The thing that mattered most to you about me. What did I change the most?
So what did you change the most? It's tough to put in a short few sentences, but really, I would say like empathy, would be the biggest thing, that I've noticed, is that, it's that so hard, man. It's just a change in your paradigm. It's a change in the way that you look at the world. It's when I feel like you value my relationship more than anything now, right? Whereas before, I feel like, you valued me becoming successful. Whereas like now, I feel like you value, me, no matter what. And it's like, not really going to have an effect on your life, whether or not, have a college degree, whether or not I'm, successful in, whatever different type of way. Like, does that make sense?
Yep.
It's real
that's
hard.
A good answer. That's a good answer. I switched from valuing control to valuing our relationship. That's a huge paradigm shift. I got to cut off though.
Okay.
We got to run out of time. We are going to run out of time. And I got a limit on this podcast. Can't be but a certain length or it won't work. We have to do this thing all over again. So anybody listening, share this with your spouse, with your children. But it's been a privilege, Eric, to have you on here sharing, and we could talk a long time. I'll get you back on here later for sure. It's been really good. So thank you for being on the podcast.
Yep, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Got some value out of it. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mack Story's Blue Collar Leadership Series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mack's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.